Hi, welcome to another video, and today I want to talk to you about a very basic concept, something that I'm pretty sure you must have thought about a lot, and that is a question of what does it mean when somebody says that they speak this or that language, other than their mother tongue, that is. I have a little interesting story to tell you. This was a long time ago. We used to have a Sunday book market back where I used to live in my 20s. And I always used to buy these language learning books. And there was a phrasebook published by the company. I believe it was Berlitz, I believe. Yeah. And it was a Hebrew phrasebook. I picked it up and I was looking at it. And there was a person next to me, and he said that, "Oh, you're buying this book. By the way, I speak Hebrew. Mazel tov." Now, okay, this may have been a joke, but just because somebody says one word, can this person claim that they speak that language? How about if this person knows 10 words or 100 words? Or if this person can only... Now, here's another one. This is a funny one. I used to work in an Arabic-speaking country some years ago, and we had a colleague. He was either from Canada or the USA, one of these two countries. So he was a native English speaker, and we got to talking about having to communicate with taxi drivers and all that. And he said that, I just tell them where I have to go. And I said to him, well, I admire you. That's a great ability, having to interact with Arabic speakers like that. He said that, no, I don't really speak Arabic. I just tell them where I want to go. And I said, well, even that, it's quite complicated, I admire you. He said, dude, I just know 2 words, left and right. That's all I tell them. I say, now go, I say left. Then I say right or left, like that. These are the only 2 words I know. So, well, for communicative purposes, for the purpose of what that person needed, he could argue that he knows Arabic enough to get something done. But speaking more generally, and this is something that actually David Nunan wrote about. I can't quote chapter and verse, but it was more or less like this. David Nunan, by the way, his books are taught, at the graduate level, or at least they were taught back when we were doing our master's degrees. And he's a big name in education, specifically English language teaching and all that. And he addressed that point, what does it mean when we say that so-and-so speaks Chinese, for example? And he gives a specific example. He said, does that mean that this person can give a lecture on engineering in Chinese? That is something that many people would struggle with, even in their mother tongue, right? So I'm not quoting from David Nunan anymore. So yeah, let's go back to ask ourselves, and you know why this question matters, actually? This matters for us as language learners. At what point would I be able to say with confidence that, hey, let's imagine that I have learned Italian and I want to say to myself, not to just, to show off to people, but to myself, when can I reasonably start believing that, yes, I can speak Italian? Now, there's a concept of the CEFR, the Common European Framework of Reference. This is a system of describing and defining different proficiency levels, and there are 6 levels to it. A1 is the most basic one, then A2, then B1, B2, and then C1, C2. C2 is a complete proficiency. This video is not about that. I don't want to talk about that technical stuff at this point. But just to give you an idea, around B1 or something, you're close to the intermediate level and all that, depending on what circumstances, under what circumstances you are communicating. But even at A2 level, you can take care of a lot of stuff. A2 is the second level on the CEFR. But let's go back. Okay, for different languages, yes, there are tests, and then they correlate that with the CEFR. Yeah, that's true. But even so, a lot of people don't take, tests and all that. And that is not really the only way to determine whether or not you speak that language, right? Just because a person has not taken, a Japanese language test doesn't mean that that person cannot speak that language. That person goes and does their shopping and communicates with native speakers, talks to them, and all that. So once again, what does it mean when a person says that that person speaks that language? Now, if you look at the research, you see like two extremes. Back in the day, I believe like some of this work was written in the 1930s and even 40s and all that. There were some researchers who described like proficiency in a foreign language, that this person should have the same level of proficiency in the foreign language as in their mother tongue. Okay? So this is one end of the spectrum. And on the other side, like there are some people who say that the moment you are able to start making short sentences, basic sentences, you are bilingual or multilingual or whatever. Okay? Now, between these two extremes, we have to ask ourselves, when is it that I can reasonably say that I can speak this language? I'll share my personal opinion with you and let me know what you think about this. I personally think that if you are able to express what you want to say at a reasonable level without too many egregious mistakes. Now remember, there are two kinds of mistakes. Mistakes that impede comprehension and mistakes that do not impede comprehension. For example, if I say to you that yesterday I goed to the beach. Now, it should be I went to the beach, but I said I goed, I added ed. Now, this is a mistake, definitely, but I guess in most circumstances, people would say it didn't impede communication, that the other person still understood, what I said. On the other hand, like if I just use a whole different word altogether, or if my pronunciation is so egregiously bad that you don't even know what the word was, that is going to impede communication. So yeah, I personally and once again, this is not set in stone. Like I said, if you read the research, you will find one extreme and another extreme. For somebody like me who learns languages for the love of the game, so to speak, as a hobby, my purpose is only and only to communicate with the native speakers of that language. And when I'm able to communicate with them, and this is another beautiful concept that it was either David Nunan or somebody else who said that to be able to deal with the unknown eventualities. Yeah, that's a beautiful concept, isn't it? Now, for example, if I learn something in a classroom, or even if I don't learn in a classroom, if I learn on my own time, and let's just say that when I learn about the past, when I learn to talk about the past simple, for example, yesterday I went to the beach, I saw my friend, I study both the regular verbs that take ed in the past simple and also irregular verbs, which, in which the verb changes. It doesn't take ed in the past simple. Now, let's imagine that the theme of my lesson was going to the beach, all right? Now, does that mean that from now on, whenever I want to talk to somebody about the past, I can only and only talk about going to the beach? No. After learning the past simple, I can use the same verbs to talk about any different kind of situation. I could talk about traveling to another country, what I did during my trip. I could talk about a beautiful recipe that I made, like a nice cake that I baked. I can talk about that in the past simple. So this is the case of dealing with unknown eventualities. So once you are in a situation, once your level reaches a point where you are able to communicate with the native speakers of your target language, and you are able to deal with unknown eventualities that reasonably we are expected to face in real life, not once again like that example of giving an engineering lecture in Chinese, like that kind of stuff. No, just like normal stuff. I think that it's reasonable to make that claim to yourself that, yes, I speak that language. Okay. Yeah, these are my 2 cents. Let me know what you think. Is that a reasonable, like, a standard that I've set for myself or not? And once again, let me make it clear, your mileage may vary. For a person who needs a specific language for passing a certain test, for example, they need to get a certain level or a certain number of marks or grades in a test. For that person, the standards are completely different. I'm talking about somebody who is learning languages casually for the fun of the game. So once again, please subscribe and give the video a like if you liked it. If you didn't like it, let's just keep that our little secret. Don't tell anybody. And I'll see you in the next video.